Welcome back, DPReview TV viewers. It's Jordan here because we finally have a ProRes Raw update for the Panasonic S1H, my favorite video camera we've been using for a while, and now we get 5.9K RAW using the full width of the sensor. We also get Super 35 4K ProRes Raw coming out of this, and soon we're going to get anamorphic support as well. It's very exciting times. Let's take a look. Okay, now there's two things I'm really excited about with this. First of all, it's actually using the 5.9K sensor. We're not doing any line skipping or pixel binning like what we saw with the Nikon Z6 or the Fujifilm GFX 100. So that means we should have very few image issues with this, and I can say the picture is beautiful coming off this. The other thing I really like is that ProRes Raw is a very efficient codec. So after working with the 8K uncompressed RAW from the Canon R5 last week, this is a breath of fresh air. Okay, so what is ProRes Raw? If you're coming from a photography background or you've worked with other video RAW files like Red's Red RAW format or Airy RAW, it's a little bit confusing. Basically, we're getting 12-bit video out of this, tons and tons of color information, but some of the advantages you might expect to see from RAW aren't here. You might think you can just totally forget about white balance and pin it in afterwards, but you do have to get it right on the shoot. Now you can see here we've got a RAW photo and we have a ProRes Raw clip with the white balance totally out. You can see with the still, no problem to correct. However, once we get that into the ballpark and the ProRes Raw, it really does start to fall apart. And that is one of the big drawbacks with it. As well, you're not going to have things like being able to dial in your ISO. You just have to use the regular image controls in whatever nonlinear editing system you're using. So Final Cut, and now it's available in Avid and Premiere support for this. So in the time I've been using the S1H with the ProRes Raw update, I've really changed the way I look at it. I don't really see it so much as raw video. I really look at it as kind of a SuperLog file with lots and lots of room for adjustments in the grade. So to see how this SuperLog compared to internal log, I captured internal 10-bit and ProRes Raw at 3200 kelvins on a cloudy day. White balance is totally out. So I got the color into a good starting point with the ProRes files, then I applied that to the internal 10-bit, and you can see the internal recording just falls apart. So ProRes Raw grades better, but it also edits very smoothly. ProRes Raw is an Apple format, and their editing suite is Final Cut Pro X, and those two work together beautifully. I mean, it's really like I'm working with smaller, even 8-bit files from other cameras. Of course, I'm working with huge file sizes, but it edits very easily. What's weird about it, it is kind of a convoluted interface to get those files in properly. So within Final Cut, here's what I have to do. I have to convert my raw footage to a log, which is a simple tool, but then I have to use Panasonic Specialty LUT just for the S1H shooting ProRes Raw. You'll have to download that. But when you're in Final Cut, it is kind of clunky, especially if there's a LUT that you want to use. You wind up stacking LUTs, and frankly, Final Cut was never really built to work that way. It's certainly doable, but it just feels very unintuitive. Something that drove me crazy with the Nikon Z6 is it disabled the electronic viewfinder when you were outputting RAW. Now, thankfully, that's not the case with the S1H. You get to use that brilliant electronic viewfinder with it. Only problem is there's no punch-in on the camera body when you're outputting RAW. So that means if I want to check my focus, I have to take my eye off the electronic viewfinder, look at the Ninja, and then back to the camera. But if you're doing smaller scale stuff like commercial work, I could see this being absolutely brilliant. And for YouTube stuff, the kind of stuff Chris and I do, you're getting amazing quality out of this with a very affordable package. Ninja 5s are quite inexpensive, and you can just drop nice inexpensive SSDs in this instead of having to buy a lot of expensive proprietary media. So yes, this is absolutely my favorite image of any of the cameras that I've got right now, but it is still a bit of a pain, so I can see us still shooting internally a lot of the time. You'll have to check this out and see if you fall into that camp. Nice thing is, it's a free upgrade if you're already an S1H owner. So don't forget, everybody, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and stay tuned for a whole lot more DPReview TV coming soon.